Lobotomy Kaisen. Years of collective Jujutsu Kaisen fans, minds deteriorating from Gege Akutami's torturous writing, memes from broken minds creating some of the most cursed, some of the most funny, and drop-dead creative memes that I've ever seen spawn from a fan base. But it wasn't always this way. It was once a happy, non-combative manga, and with time the artwork became rougher, the story became much darker, and the fights only got better and better. Love it or hate it, millions of people tuned into early scans each and every week because the story had everyone hooked. But before we can go and fully dive into what had everybody feeding for the next chapter, we'll need to backtrack all the way back to the beginning, to where it all started. Chapter 1, Ryomen Sukuna. When talking about Jujutsu Kaisen, there will be a repeated theme of how you view life and how you view death. Many, and I mean many, characters create different ideas out of this notion. But for our main character, Itadori Yuji, this idea was made from his grandfather's final words. Yuji, you're a strong kid, so help people. It doesn't have to be all the time, just whenever you can. You may feel lost. Don't expect gratitude, just help them. And when it's your time to go, make sure you're surrounded by others. Don't end up like me. From this moment further, this would shape Yuji's view on death and what he has to do to obtain it. This was Yuji's very first curse placed upon him. Before the grandfather's passing, Megumi Fushiguro, who has a very interesting view on death as well, makes his way into the story. He went into Yuji's school in search of a cursed item, that being one of history's strongest sorcerers, Ryomen Sukuna's fingers. Yuji, being a part of the occult club, even though he shows extreme athletic prowess, breaking national records with ease and running faster than a car, pockets the item. Also, Megumi refers to Yuji's power as something similar to Maki-senpai's situation, which is just a really cool foreshadow. So after Yuji's grandfather had passed away, Megumi managed to track him down and retrieve the item, only for them both to realize that one of his occult club classmates must have it, which is really bad. Megumi and Yuji run towards the school only to realize they were way too late. Megumi runs in with no hesitation, leaving Yuji to ponder on the outside. His grandfather's words circling within his head to save people and to not end up like himself. Everything snaps in a single moment, and before Yuji could even notice what he had done, he jumped to the 3rd floor and saved his classmates against the monstrous curse, effectively sacrificing himself to save Megumi, save his classmates, and defeat the evil curse by ingesting the cursed item. Finding out doing so allows the ancient sorcerer to take control of Yuji's body and use it as a vessel, only to then realize also that Yuji is somewhat special in the fact that he can take control of his body back no problem, making him a perfect vessel to house absolute evil. But Megumi still believes in the greater good to eliminate the vessel, otherwise very little can actually stop Sukuna. And my man Megumi was ready to summon Maharaga Chapter 1, bro. I'm crying. But let's be honest, bro. Let's be honest. If Megumi did end up summoning him, Sukuna would have gotten absolutely washed. Luckily, before any carnage like that could happen, the strongest sorcerer of today, Satoru Gojo, comes and basically levi's the situation by beating the hell out of the problem to show the higher-ups that it is nothing to fear, effectively saving Yuji from becoming a wanted felon in the Jujutsu world for now. They do plan to have Yuji eat all the fingers and be eliminated once all of the fingers have been ingested to rid Sukuna once and for all, until he decides to take him under his wing personally and train him at Jujutsu High, a school of Jujutsu sorcerers, until the time arises. This is the 2nd time Yuji's view on death has changed. Yuji has found his good death. Die surrounded by those he saved, while also taking out an evil curse in the process. It may not be an ideal death, but it is his death. Another part that I actually forgot to kind of mention about Yuji is that Yuji views his grandfather's death much differently than the grandfather himself. The grandfather believed that It was a curse to be alone, and that's why he told him, the last thing he told him was die surrounded by people. He didn't necessarily say die around people you love. He just said die surrounded by people. And so I believe that when Yuji had heard that, he heard a bit of sadness coming from the grandfather. But when he interpreted that perspective on death, Yuji then realized that if he's strong enough to save people, he wants to at least grant himself and grant others an opportunity to have a natural death, because he believes the grandfather died peacefully. He died on his own terms. He didn't die from murder. He didn't die from some natural phenomenon or unnatural phenomenon. He died naturally. He had a good death. And I believe at this point in time, Yuji believes that the only reason why he jumped up to the 3rd floor was to save his classmates was, one, because they were going to die, but it wasn't the death that was the problem. It was how they were going to die. Yuji wants to play savior and somehow guide these people to have the most peaceful lives that they could lead, and then die amongst the peace as well. Going back to the chapter at hand, we learn more about Sukuna himself. A demon of legend, sparring 4 arms, 2 faces, and large amounts of power. During his prime, sorcerers were thought to be some of the strongest in history. Even still, none could even hold a candle to Sukuna himself. Even with all this, Gojo remains to believe he could still win against him at full power, spawning the very first "Nah, I'd win." Yuji meets the principal of Jujutsu High and his resolve is tested, which allows us to understand one more thing about Yuji before I start harping on this dead horse. But it isn't just about the way you die, it's about the way you live before you die. Yuji disagrees that his grandfather had a bad death. He believes he passed away peacefully, but was filled with regrets about how he lived his life. Yuji does not want that, and that's one of the major motivations behind Yuji's actions. Later, after being accepted into the school, Megumin, Gojo, and Yuji go to meet the newest member of the crew after Yuji, Nobara Kurosaki. Nobara Kurosaki, a short-tempered, headstrong individual who might be a little crazy. And can I just say that these two are fucking hilarious? Like, when I was rereading the chapters, I literally felt myself smirking, laughing, looking at these two interact, because they're literally like the last 2 brain cells, and Megumin's the fucking brains. He's just trying to be like the most stoic individual that you can possibly see, and these two are just fucking idiots in the back. But I absolutely love it. It's perfect. Anyways, I have a question for you all. What the hell is wrong with the characters in the show? Who in their right mind would go to fight the strongest sorcerer just for fun? Who jumps 3 stories into a building filled with monsters? Who nearly dies and gets right back into action the very next week? People with a few screws missing, right? Yeah, you would be right. And Nobara is no different. Gojo explains that Jujutsu sorcerers face death every single day, so in order for them to keep going, they have to be a little crazy as well. Well, Nobara passes the test with flying colors, and what do you know? She also has a pretty interesting view on life and death and the correct way to live, but we'll get into that much later down the road. After everything, the future seems to be bright until the narrator explains that on July 2018, one of the 3 students would die that day. Yuji fucking dies. The date comes around, and right before going into the juvenile detention center to save and kill as many curses as possible, a young lady asks for them to please save her son. This is where everyone's morals are put on display, and this will come up in detail later, but Yuji is motivated to save the son. Nobara is down for whatever, but Megumin stays quiet. Going in there, the lady's son is most definitely not alive, and this creates a point of tension between the boys. Yuji wants to save everyone, no bias involved. However, Megumin wants to live a life where he chooses who he wants to save solely on personal beliefs and selfish actions. Nobara gets no-clipped, and Yuji and Megumin are left with a special grade cursed spirit. The two are split up, and Yuji again sacrifices himself to save his friends. But this time around, we're reminded that he's just a 16-year-old boy. As he faces death, Yuji thinks about his grandfather's last words. They become wrapped in his doubts and pleas overlap them. Thinking about if he never jumped into that building, if he never ate that finger, he would never be going through this pain right now. Time to kill the momentum. I know, I'm sorry, but there are some things that I kind of want to explain because they have explained it much in detail within the chapter. I just didn't really have a good place to put it. But what are curses, right? What's cursed energy? And what's a cursed technique? Well, I'm so glad you asked that beautiful question. Curses are derived from humans. More accurately, they come from our negative thoughts and fears manifested. The more something is feared, the stronger the curse becomes, putting them into a grading system of 1 through 4, but there are special cases where the curses gain more power than natural, making them called special grade curses. But for the situation that Yuji is currently in, the curse is a product of overwhelming cursed energy. Cursed energy is the same negative emotions that breathe life into curses. However, sorcerers use it as a form of coding to allow them to expel these cursed spirits. And cursed techniques are tools in which sorcerers use to fight against cursed spirits. For every sorcerer though, the technique is completely coded to them. For example, Megumin has the 10 shadows which allow him to summon shadows to fight alongside him. But spoiler warning ahead, I repeat, spoiler warning ahead, please. I'm gonna give you some time to skip. There should be a time code here. I don't know what the time code is, but it's gonna be there. We see how different the abilities can be used because when Sukuna uses it, he uses it so much more differently than how Megumin would. It's all about the cursed energy you can put into it, how far your imagination can reach, and how you understand the technique. Another really cool example of this would be Shrine. We later learn that Sukuna has this ability called Shrine, and that is everything. It's his domain expansion, it's his cleave and dismantle, it's everything. Well, Yuji being somewhat related to Sukuna, as I said, this is spoiler, like if you're here and you're mad, I told you spoiler warning. Anyway, another cool instance would be how Sukuna views using Shrine versus how, Yuji uses Shrine, right? Because let's be honest, Sukuna is like 1,000 years old, so he's from the time where people regularly just carried around swords. So cleave and dismantle, that's kind of all he knew. Like he's seen people slice and dice all the time. That's probably how he fought before he became an ultra powerful sorcerer, right? And so when Yuji is not a part of that, Yuji's more modernized. So when he uses Shrine, he needs to touch something and let it also kind of create like a dotted line for him to cut with scissors, because that's how he views the ability. So it just changes from person to person. Back to the manga at hand, Yuji lets Sukuna take over his body, kills the finger bearer, bullies Megumin a bit. Then Sukuna decides to kill Yuji and force him to make a binding vow, which would come to have a terrible repercussions in the future. But let's take a step back. During the fight, quite a few things are put into motion. Firstly, we learn while Yuji's ideals are to save people and save as many people as possible, Megumin believes that the only thing that is fair in life is how unfair it is to everyone. His stepsister is one of the kindest people that he would ever know, yet she was cursed by her family. There would be times where he sat near her hospital bed and thought about how there should be more people, more good people who should receive fairness. That's why he saved Yuji with no hesitation. That's why he didn't care for the juvenile attendee. He wants good people to have fair lives, and so he will decide who he will save by that very code. And secondly, Sukuna now has his eyes set on Megumin for mysterious reasons. During the aftermath, Gojo, for the very first time in the series, actually seems to be rather pissed about the death and accuses the higher-ups for using false information to get Yuji killed, while also Megumin and Nobara discuss Yuji's death. The two of them seem rather okay despite this being their first time that they both dealt with a loss of a comrade, but as strong as they are both very clearly affected by it. The introduction of the second years is swift. Maki, Panda, and Unimaki tell the grieving students about the Goodwill event. Simultaneously, the new big bads are introduced as well, as they conduct a plan to defeat the sorcerers and become the true humans. The plan is to remove Gojo from the fight itself and make Sukuna an ally for the cause. Remember how I said curses are created by fear and negative emotions? Well, the next big bads are called the disaster curses because there are manifestations of fears of natural calamities. We would have the fear of volcanoes, the fear of Mother Nature, the fear of water or drowning the ocean, and we would also have the most powerful fear of it all, humans. Humans fear other humans, and that makes a powerful, powerful curse. Gojo explains why he was so worked up earlier. He believes that the Jujutsu world is in ruins due to the higher ups. So being the strongest won't get him anywhere, so instead he plans to personally train up the next generation of sorcerers that have the potential to even be much stronger than him, and he says Yuji was one of those people. Luckily and unluckily for Gojo, Yuji is granted a second chance at life, so that's good. I am definitely glazing through this section of the manga, but there are definitely very two different things that we need to take away from this innate domain conversation, and that's basically that Sukuna pretty much forced Yuji to making a binding vow, which will then allow him 1 minute of control if he brought him back to life. And the second thing is the very mention of binding vows. Binding vows are going to be a very, very big part of the story later down the road, for better or for worse. It's going to be. So let us put a pin in it for right now. Just know that once a binding vow is made, it cannot be undone without punishment. Gojo's happy to have his student back, and before any shady business goes down, Gojo decides to train him. Training montage, let's fucking go. I wonder what he's about to get into. He's watching TV, and it seems to have worked. Yuji is kind of broken, am I wrong? Man's is supernaturally strong and understood cursed energy in literally one session of practice. Even Gojo himself says he's a quick learner, and that's coming from Gojo. Going back to the disaster curses, they plan to seal Gojo, but the volcano dude named Jogo decides to take on Gojo himself. Reason being is because he was roughly relative to maybe 8 fingers of Sukuna's fingers, in terms of power, which, for the reference, just one of the finger bearers that Yuji fought was only one of the Sukuna's fingers. So yeah, he's pretty damn strong, but even still, Gojo completely wipes the floor with him, which makes you wonder if Gojo was just flexing his power or if he was truly about that business when he said he could defeat Sukuna. Anyways, he uses this time to teach Yuji about some high-level sorcery, teleports to Yuji, teleport back to the battlefield, then cast a high-level technique called a domain expansion, the pinnacle of Jujutsu sorcery. Gojo's domain expansion, one of the strongest in the series. You are given all of the information all at once, yet you are unable to do anything effectively with that information. Gojo said it best. Ironic, isn't it? Given everything but unable to do anything, dying slowly. Before Gojo could get any questions answered, another disaster curse spirit comes to save the day. That's a bummer. But hey, at least now Gojo is aware that it's multiple cursed spirits that are working in tandem, which basically is unheard of. Going back to the B plot, Megumin and Obaro meet the Kyoto students, and one's apparently strong enough to take out special grade curses all by himself. His name being Oitoto, a fucking beast, and a damning character whose view on death is also a very interesting one. He beats the hell out of Megumin for not liking his taste in women. I know that sounds very trivial and without context, trust me, I know. But in actuality, this fight was a lot more important than I had realized before rereading JJK. As you know, it's quite a meme in the JJK community that Megumin is the prophet child, filled with so much potential due to his curse technique. However, Toto was the first to show us his biggest flaw, his mindset. What holds a sorcerer back is their selflessness, their willingness to fight curses with no gratitude. However, what really sets special grades apart is that they're not doing it for any noble reasons, purely selfish ones, yearning for a good fight, fighting curses for revenge, to live without regret, to live in order, to never forget your comrades. These are all examples of the mindset someone should have to be the strongest sorcerer. However, Megumin is always very logical, is always a very big team player, but isn't selfish enough. When being asked about the women he fancies, Megumin's thought process was to play it safe, to go with the generic answer that no one can really complain with. And Toto really did not like that, and he kindly told Megumin that by beating the shit out of him. Oh, and Mai shot Nobara, but don't worry, she's good, she's okay. A month later, in September of 2018, it seems another disaster curse has made their move, and it's time for Yuji to shine. Now that is the ending of the first 2 arcs of the manga, that being the Cursed Child, crazy name, foreshadowed by the way, and the Fearsome Womb. Here's some things that I want you guys to have your minds thinking of on constantly while moving forward in the manga. Let's start with Yuji. Yuji's cursed by his grandfather, right? If you've noticed in the manga, there's actually panels where it's just completely black, and then it has a certain font, and it's all white, and that's basically when you're being cursed, right? If you've seen when Yuji was on death's door, his father's encouraging words, or his grandfather's encouraging words, became something of a curse. It became dark, warping around his brain. So Yuji has been cursed, and that could be the reason why he's so fixated on having this good death, or having this peaceful death, right? And we'll learn more about it, but a big person had also cursed someone was Yuta Akotsu, someone we haven't met before because he's actually in a prequel called Jujutsu Kaisen 0, but just know that he created a powerful special cursed spirit solely by cursing them. So it's very interesting. They say that love is the most crooked kind of cursed. So Yuji being cursed by his grandfather, right? Megumin wants to save people he deems the world has been unfair to, but is too ready to throw away his life. There has been many times where he believes that winning a fight due to dying and dying to try to win a fight are the same things, but he will come to realize that it is something completely different. And we've seen him time and time again where he's fighting against Toto, a one-fingered Sukuna, and a bunch of other instances. He would put up the hand signs, treasure eye summon. Bro, he's trying to summon Maharaga, something extremely powerful and something we are going to learn more about later as well. Nobara just wants to live her life without regret. It's pretty trivial compared to the first 2, but it is a big thing to just want to live your life, to do what you want to do. It's the biggest thing for a Jujutsu sorcerer, and that's why I believe Nobara is quite strong mentally. Gojo wants to nurture the next future generation so that to break the mold on the future of Jujutsu society, right? And we have to ask our question is, why? What has he experienced? Gojo is so incredibly strong, it's hard to believe, like, what has he seen so high up that is unfiltered to him and him alone, and things we're gonna learn to come to like understand about, you know. The cursed spirit blames humans for their existence. They are created unknowingly by humans and now are being hunted by the same humans. They want to become the true humans, and to do so, they must befriend Sukuna and seal Gojo away. They begin to hatch their plans. That's it for now. Let's get into the following arcs. We are introduced to quite a few people at the start of the next arc. Junpei is a bullied child who is able to see Mahito, the cursed spirit causing all these informalities. Nanami is now Yuji's new instructor. Gojo felt he was a bad teacher, and so he called a longtime associate to teach him the ways of Jujutsu sorcery. Yuji and Nanami don't really get along at first, but they continue working together to find the source of the strange occurrences, and later find that these things that they are fighting are still very much humans, which pisses Yuji off. Nanami encounters the problem and begins the epic showdown, the scary growth of the special grade curse and the pinnacle of the strength of a grade 1 sorcerer. Other than the amazing fight choreography, we do learn quite a few things that will become extremely important down the road, that being binding vows, specifically seeing it in use, and the topic of the soul. During this fight, Nanami has a binding vow in which his cursed energy grows after a certain time of the day is reached. He calls it overtime. This shows that how binding vows work is the law of equivalent exchange. You must give up something to gain something. For Nanami, he pretty much nerfed himself for sections of the day to then gain monstrous powers for fights such as these. While the soul is a big takeaway regarding how Mahito fights, he explains that the soul came first and that he has the ability to see the soul and alter its form at will, calling it human transfiguration. The reason this is so OP is, well, one, because it gives him an extreme range of versatility during any and all battles, but also tells us that indirectly that souls can exist without a physical body. It would explain why Sukino is able to live on through Yuji and how it explains some future plot points as well. I just think it's really cool that he set it up all the way back here. After causing a 2.0 magnitude earthquake, Yuji bumps into Junpei and gets to know him pretty well. The mom invites Yuji over for dinner and Getsu watches over with a sly smile. That is not good. Getsu seems to have planted one of Sukuna's fingers at Junpei's home to both cause chaos and have the Jujutsu High take it into their collection, and chaos didn't make. Mahito lies to Junpei, forcing him to believe that one of his bullies and someone he envies was behind planting such a curse. Obviously, Yuji makes it there just in time to stop him from going too far and spews his idealistic way of thinking, only to have his ideals tested once again. People don't have any heart. They don't. Or else, are you saying that my mother and I are both cursed by people with a heart? That's just not fair. Again, Yuji's mentality has altered. He's come to see a new perspective and comes to Junpei with a more gentle approach, asking him to come to Jujutsu High, and that way they'll work together to bring justice to the ones behind his mother's death. But he's too late. Mahito used Junpei perfectly, caused them to fight, and now has Sukuna's vessel right where he wants him. In a state of desperation, Yuji tries to ask for help, but is quickly reminded that these things feed off of negative energy. These things are innately evil. This would serve as another lesson for Yuji. Fail to act quick enough, and not only your life will be at stake. Filled with rage and ingesting the lesson that was just taught to him, Yuji finally steels himself and vows to kill Mahito. The two engage in a brutal battle, and again, I must say the choreography is top dog, bro. Love it, love to see it. Yuji is the only person up until now that actually could harm Mahito, and this is the first time Mahito actually was fearing for his life. They've become mortal enemies. Though Yuji is not quite as strong as Mahito and is about to lose, but Nanami comes to save the day and Jump Kaisen commences.
Get him up, let him get up, let him get up, let him get up. Fight back, nigga! Fight back! Fight back!
Beating him senseless to the brink of death, and that's when Mahito enlightens and casts his very first domain expansion, trapping Nanami and checkmating him. During his final moments, we reflect on Nanami's past. After leaving Jujutsu High for a bit, he explains how after leaving Jujutsu High, it was 4 years where he spent day in and day out thinking about money. He thought if he could just keep at it, he'd be able to retire at 40 years old, move somewhere cheap enough to just live the rest of his life out curse-free. He was never one to think about the deeper meaning of life or anything like that, but deep down he knew he was living a life that didn't really make a difference one way or another. It was only after he would go and visit the local bakery, one that he went to quite often during his working days, and the store clerk became so familiar with him to the point that she would actually know his orders without him even telling her. As time went on, he got more and more exhausted and noticed a cursed spirit hanging on her shoulder drained her as well. It was at this moment he realized something. If we didn't have any bakeries, people who would want to eat bread would be in a bind. With that, Nanami's mind's made up. he's going to live a life that will make a difference, and exercises the curse on the shoulder, being thanked on the way out. Looking death in the face, Nanami smiles as he has no regrets, but this time around Yuji's the one to save him, forcing Mahito to connect with Yuji's soul, which Sukuna doesn't appreciate and kindly tells him to stop. With his domain destroyed and curse energy depleted, he makes a run for it. As Nanami goes to chase it, he realizes Yuji's injuries finally got the better of him, and he collapses, marking the end of their brutal battle. This one ends in a draw. Mahito was unable to bring out Sukuna out of Yuji, but Mahito did in fact change a fundamental part of Yuji. Within the aftermath, Yuji begins thinking about how the way he used to think just now seems so hypocritical. He's killed people, and he wants to kill Mahito from stopping people to have good deaths. He's unsure about how he wants to allow people to have their peaceful or good deaths, but he does know one thing. He needs to be stronger. And with that marks the end to another arc. This one focused heavily on Yuji as a character and put him in in new surroundings with new comrades and antagonists, building up his character even more. But there are some things that I want you guys to keep in the back of your head, because the future has so many answers for what they just displayed to us. But I want you guys to try to have it just be ingested, the information just within you. So first off and foremost, Yuji's struggle on a good death and his morals regarding killing in general. Before fighting Mahito, Yuji believed he wouldn't have to kill anyone and that killing should never be an option, only to absolutely break his code and go full rage against Mahito, even killing the transfigured humans to get to him. So moving forward, this will forever stay in Yuji's soul. Secondly, Mahito's relationship with the soul and his undying love of learning and torturing Yuji and becoming a curse. And finally, Nanami's view on Jujutsu society and how he's placed the burden of looking after the younger generation all on himself. So something that I've noticed and that I absolutely fucking love is the parallel between Mahito and Yuji even this early on. Mahito has just been birthed not too long ago. Mahito is a collection of human negativity, from hatred to fearing of other humans to everything, racism, sexism, misogyny. All of that is just compiled into the worst parts of humanity and birthed Mahito. Mahito's pretty new, but he's pretty damn powerful. And it's so interesting to look at how Mahito basically was born and he's learning to be a curse. He's enjoying this thrill. At first he didn't enjoy fighting, but the more he fought, the more he learned, the more he loved that feeling to see people despair. He loved seeing Yuji despair. And flip the coin and we'll have Yuji jumped into this jujutsu world, and he's only been doing this for about a month at this point, and yet somehow, some way, he's out here fighting against a special grade curse and losing, but he's as strong as a grade 1 sorcerer. So it's really interesting to see the parallels between the two, where one is learning how to effectively kill people, where he's enjoying how to be a curse, right? While Yuji, on the other hand, is learning how to save people, learning how and why he was giving the second life at life and what his grandfather truly meant. It is so interesting to see the two of them parallel. The next chapter kicks off yet another arc, this being the Kyoto Goodwill event. With the cursed spirits planning having failed, they come up with a new plan of attack. Retrieve Sukuna's fingers and feed them to Yuji to bring out him forcefully, and then force him to make a binding vow pact. While this is happening, Gojo and Yuji are trying to figure out how to reintroduce him into the group because, well, he's been fucking dead for a month now. And the Kyoto and Tokyo students meet up before the event starts. Gojo's reintroduction for Yuji goes insanely poor. No one's happy to see him, and Gojo just laughs in the outer's face because, well, they've also got bamboozled. But we do get this cute page of Nobara being a tad bit emotional that Yuji actually never died. And you know, in retrospect, looking at this page and looking at that interaction, this is truly heartbreaking, because you'll come to learn that Nobara doesn't cry very often, and the fact that she only knew Yuji for but a couple weeks at that, she already was shedding tears for the man. It's awesome. The two teams explain their plan of attack, who's going to be in front, who's taking the rear, and who's most suited to fight against a certain person. But Kyoto's side is so much more different. Their only objective is to kill Yuji, Sukuna's vessel. Todo is not having it with all of the scheming and plotting and decides to leave. But Kyoto team decides while he's out causing mayhem during the event, they'll just all charge Yuji at once and try to end him as swiftly as possible. Meanwhile, Megumin is able to see that something happened with Yuji, but later asks if Yuji is alright. It's a heartwarming conversation where Yuji tries to put on that happy face, but quickly breaks down and tells Megumin something did indeed happen while he was away. The action of killing humans and losing a friend has taken a toll on Yuji, but he tells Megumin he's glad that it happened because now he never wants to lose again to anyone. The event's about to begin in 3, 2, wait, I haven't even explained what the hell the Goodwill event is. Anyway, the Goodwill event is a test of comrades' abilities to work together and defeat curses. The team to exercise the most and highest graded curses win the match. Todo ignores the entire premise of the event and goes straight to boxing, asking Yuji the fabled question, what's his type of girl? And Yuji, being the straightforward man that he is, just says, a tall girl with a big butt. Todo loses it and relives a memory that never happened. Now, I actually remember when this chapter came out and people were theorizing about how this could be some innate domain expansion that Yuji's been using without even realizing. People thinking that, well, Yuji does affect the soul naturally and he does have this parallel to Mahito, so why not alter someone's memories as well? People really started theorizing on this in the Shibuya incident for reasons we'll get into much later, but just know that it happens again. And you know what they say, 1 time, it's a coincidence. 2 times, that's just lucky. 3 times, that's a pattern. The Kyoto students try to kill Yuji, but Todo stops them as he's taken an interest in Yuji personally. The Tokyo students catch on to their plans and gets into the fight trying to stop them. But Yuji and Todo continue their fight until somehow, someway, Todo pretty much begins teaching Yuji how to correctly use his cursed energy. He explains that naturally Yuji is extremely strong. However, his special move, Divergent Fist, is not born out of intention, but out of habit. And if he wants to get stronger, he'll need to use his cursed energy the correct way. Todo further explains that cursed energy comes straight from the stomach. He tells Yuji, we exist in a world with our entire body, mind, and soul. This seems to have a profound effect on Yuji, but before we can see how this affects Yuji, we need to see other people's fights as well. Panda and Mekamaru fight. Maki beats the strongest character in the verse, Miwa, then beats the living daylights out of her sister. Alright, my bad. Enough memes. Let me actually explain these characters because they do serve a lot of great foreshadows for the story to come, and they help us understand the world that we actually live in, so let me stop being a bitch and just putting memes there. Maki and Mekamaru are 2 sides of the same coin. They both have been blessed with something called heavenly restriction. Remember what I said about the laws of equivalent exchange. Give up something to gain something else. Well, that's exactly what we see from both parties here. For Maki, from birth, she was unable to see curses or had any type of cursed energy to speak of. But that's because from birth she was gifted physical strength for her lack of cursed energy, and Mekamaru was gifted a frail body but crazy amounts of cursed energy. So much energy, in fact, that he's able to control these dolls and puppets from across the nation. Let's discuss some more fights. Megumin and Kamo fight and are equally matched until the disaster curse makes their move, casting a veil over the battlegrounds and creating the rules in which allow everyone access except for Satoru Gojo. Megumin and Kamo try to fight the beast but come to realize they're dealing with a beast in physical defense, and it takes out Inumaki, Kamo, Megumin, and Maki one by one. But just in the nick of time, Todo and Yuji show up on the scene, kicking off one of Jujutsu Kaisen's best fights within the series in my opinion. Megumin worries for his friend, getting flashbacks to the time they were separated by the finger bearer, but in a really cool callback that shows Yuji's growth from then to now, always gives me goosebumps. Instead of pleading with Megumin to go and not to worry, now he's extremely confident in front of an arguably stronger opponent. Like the madmen they are, Todo uses this time, while fighting a special grade curse mind you, to teach Yuji how to release his inner potential and create a potent strike called a Black Flash. With a few hiccups along the way and overall funny interaction between the two of them, Yuji is able to tap into the full concentration and land a heavy blow on Hanami, the disaster curse. The two quite literally embody the "let them cook" meme. Let them cook, and cook they did. Using Todo's curse technique, which was slightly shown a few chapters ago, Todo is able to switch places with anything that imbues cursed energy, that being humans, curses, cursed tools, a rock covered in cursed energy. The technique is boogie woogie. We are told that Nanami is the current world record holder for the most consecutive Black Flashes at once, but within this fucking fight, Yuji hits 4 Black Flashes back to back to back, tying with Nanami, and my boy just learned how to do it the other day. Man, I'm fucking hyped. My bad, y'all. This shit is just too beautiful, bro. Gege Akutami was in his bag with this fight. From Hanami enjoying the thrill of the fight and seeing that rub off on both Todo and Yuji, to the extreme growth seen from Yuji himself, to damn it, bro, the art, man. The art is too fire. Look at this, bro. Look at this masterpieces. Look at these panels. Am I glazing or am I glazing? Anyways, Gojo jump scare. That means the curtain is down and Gojo is free to run rampant. Gojo decides to teleport to this crazy curse user and mangle his arms and legs, then sends a goddamn purple nuke from across the map, killing Hanami. But not really. It seems the Jujutsu sorcerers win the battle, but not the war, as Mahito has successfully gathered the fingers in Jujutsu's high possession. With that, the Goodwill has come to a close. The disaster curse have now obtained 3 curse wombs and 6 of the cursed. Where the fuck did they get the other cursed shit then? I don't know. I'm gonna just trust what I said right here. I'm not gonna lie to you. And the Goodwill event has technically been incomplete, so they have a tiebreaker, which comes to be a baseball game. Trust me guys, this makes sense. It's largely a team player game, but also baseball is a team player game that requires those playing to be a bit selfish and aim for the fences. Also, going back to the 3 cursed wombs and 6 of Sukuna's fingers, I wrote this script quite a while ago and I read it and I was writing it. Every time I would read a chapter, I would write new stuff, read a chapter, write new stuff. I could have sworn they had like 9 cursed wombs, right? Am I tripping? And then I thought they had 15 of Sukuna's fingers. Wait, so let's think about this. Sukuna. So Yuji ate 1 finger, then he ate another one with Gojo. So that's 2. And then they did the finger bearer, but that comes later, so that's 3. I'm trying to. How did he end up at 15 fingers? Am I tripping? Hey guys, I had a little lunch break. This, if you don't know, is ramen. It was gifted to me as a gift. I decided I should eat it. Why is it so spicy, bro? Holy fuck, this shit is spicy. I thought it would be fun to try to read and eat this spicy ass noodle all in the same go. My lips are actually on fire. Like, this is so unfunnily spicy. Like, it fucking hurts. It hurts. It hurts. Woo! Some time has passed, and the trio are sent on a mission to eliminate a cursed spirit. There's been a lot of people complaining about the apartment buildings, and when going to the receptionist desk, they're always stabbed to death in the same fashion. Looking for clues, they attend the funeral of one of the boys who were killed, and come to find apparently Megumin was quite the delinquent back in the day, as they all seem to be both scared and respect him greatly. They find their lead, and we come to learn that Megumin has an older sister named Tsuniki. Megumin's so mysterious, and I'm in so much pain. Anyways, Mahito and Geto are up to BS again and started force feeding people these cursed wombs and effectively creating errand boys. While Megumin and the game figure out where the people have been being cursed, they realize they need to visit the bridge at the dead of night to catch the cursed spirit behind all these deaths. But while doing so, one of the blood paintings makes their appearance, more than likely being there for a completely different reason. Yuji takes on the creature head on, while Nobara and Megumin try killing the target, but it's pretty elusive. Things take a weird turn when Nobara is dragged into a portal, and Yuji follows suit, now leaving Megumin to fight the curse alone while they deal with whatever these are. Nobara mentions how they seem odd. They don't seem to be cursed spirits, nor do they seem to be cursed users. The blood painting clarifies that the errand they are on was to obtain Sukuna's fingers, and that the curse that they had been chasing around, and the curse that's been causing countless deaths, was just another finger bearer, which Megumin now has to fight 1v1. Megumin has a breakthrough through the form of a flashback. After seeing Yuji's insane growth, Megumin wanted to become stronger, so he asked Gojo to train him personally. Within their training session, Gojo opens his eyes of what's been holding him back: his mindset. Gojo references the baseball game. He mentions how people like Maki, Yuji, and even himself are always aiming for the fences. However, for Megumin, he plays like a team player in a sport that is an individual one. Yes, it's good to work with other sorcerers, but at the end of the day, you die alone. Megumin has an ability that is a sure win trump card and relies on this way too heavily. In Gojo's words, winning by dying and winning even if you die are two completely different things, Megumin. Give it your all. It's okay to be a little selfish. And with that, Megumin decides to throw everything away and go full throttle, expanding his domain expansion for the very first time. And with that, Megumin comes out on top and manages to defeat a special grade cursed all on his own. One Megumin flashback later, we get to the Nobara and Yuji fight. The blood paintings can feel the presence of Sukuna's fingers, and when they go to escape. However, Yuji gets there to stop them in their tracks. These two have some blood manipulation technique which poisons the opponent, not killing them, but gives them an insane amount of pain. The fight turns into a game of chicken as Nobara stabs herself, with her technique causing damage to both parties. The blood painting notes that if it's a game of endurance, she'd surely lose first due to her technique not being able to kill such powerful foes. But Yuji, being Sukuna's vessel, has grown intolerant to all toxins, and in the most badass set of lines possible, if there is only pain, Yuji Itadori will not stop. Man, I'm fucking hyped, bro. As hyped as I am, I found myself in tears during this fight. And trust and believe, me crying alone in a coffee shop as I read these chapters is not a pretty picture. Go ahead, imagine it. Just me alone with a donut and a coffee, and I'm just crying. No one else is there. Just me. Is that pathetic? Anyways, a big part of the fight was introducing the relationships of the blood paintings. 150 years in the past or so, a woman with a weird genetic makeup had given birth to a baby that was both cursed and human, only to be found by history's most evil sorcerer, Noritoshi Kamo. He would experiment on the girl and created 9 cursed blood paintings, though only 3 of them had found their way into a suitable vessel. These brothers live on for each other, so when Yuji was putting the hurt on Izu, the youngest brother, he cried out his brother's name, and God, that hurt. In a world as brutal as Jujutsu Kaisen, you tend to forget there is a middle ground to these situations. Being born as something not even a curse or a human, what are you meant to do? Become an enemy to those that created you, or try to strive for a world that best fits your needs? And unfortunately for these two, they chose the wrong side and paid dearly for it. When killing the younger brother, Nobara realizes these things are made of flesh and blood and stops momentarily. Yuji stops in his tracks as he witnesses the cursed thing shed tears, but are quickly brought back to reality and forced to end the fight once and for all. And the only thing that Yuji is left to say is, damn, that hurt. The very next scene is some of the best writing, I think, up to this point. We learned so much about Yuji, we learned so much about Megumin, but during the aftermath, Yuji and Nobara share their thoughts on the situation. It's a scarily accurate conversation, not very dramatized, doesn't feel rehearsed. It just felt like two people going through a shocking situation, and really shows on how perspective on a situation can really change how it affects you. Yuji from the start of the manga found life to be truly valuable, so killing was off the table. But filled with so much rage and truly wanting to kill something evil and vile, he justified it to himself that these things are evil. So with him killing them, he's actually saving people. But now, who did he save? Were they truly evil? Those are the doubts he is struggling with. He understands it was a fight to life or death, and there was really not much of a choice involved, but due to his actions today, tears were shed. However, Nobara believes there wasn't much choice involved. Had they let them go or captured them, they would have just gotten killed either way. She doesn't care if it was the right or wrong, because who's to really say if they weren't in your shoes? But she does agree their actions still resulted in their deaths. And so moving forward, that makes them accomplices in their deaths. A couple of days later, the gang has gone back to their quiet life. Gojo pulls some strings behind the scenes to make Maki, Panda, Megumin, Nobara, and Yuji grade 1 sorcerers. Nobara encounters a past classmate of Yuji. She has always had a little crush on him, but since she was a bit overweight, she didn't have the confidence to share her feelings. Now feeling much more confident, she decided to ask Nobara for help. During this chapter, I couldn't help but smile while reading this. I'm not sure how true this is, but I remember hearing that Gege wants to write a light-hearted genre, manga in the future, and that's probably why he's ending it so abruptly, as people might feel. But you know what? I think he could. Personally, after reading this chapter, I believe if he were to make a rom-com, light-hearted, slice of life manga, I would watch it. I would read it. It's amazing. It was just, the writing was so wholesome. It was so funny, and just overall a great change of pace after all that fighting. Though she doesn't know if Yuji has a girlfriend already, so she calls up Megumin. First, he's annoyed that she even called him for such a stupid question, but quickly gets invested. He mentions how he doesn't seem to have anyone in his life, and that, his type of women is usually tall. The team cheers because Yoko has had a growth spurt over the past year, and they call Yuji over immediately. Only then does Nobara realize that she must look completely different from the last time Yuji had seen her, and starts to freak out about it, but without a second of hesitation, Yuji recognized her, scoring a straight 10 out of 10 with the boys. So, I know that was a lot. Trust me, I know that was a lot to read, but basically that was the Goodwill event, and that was also the death painting arcs, which take up about 33 chapters. So, that's good. These arcs were full of wholesome moments, badass fights, story-driven characters, and battles of perspectives, and I'm wanting to go through all of it. So let's get into it. Let's start with our main boy Yuji. At the beginning of the Goodwill event, he had just learned what losing someone felt like. Yes, he lost his grandfather, but he went peacefully. When Junpei had died, Yuji was powerless to do anything, and learned how strong and how evil curses can be, and he wanted to gain strength so that could never ever happen again. With that mindset in mind, he did just that and scored 4 black flashes, learned to use cursed energy well, and fought toe to toe with a goddamn special grade. Then later having that breakthrough in his good death limiter, learning the valuable truth that sometimes death is just truly unavoidable, especially in this line of work. As much as he hated it, he found out he had what it took. It also humanizes Yuji in a sense where I feel like some main characters are just a little too nice, where their goody two shoes act goes way over, you know, it just starts feeling like textbook, word from word, bar from bar. But Yuji just feels like a really likable guy with the way he handled the whole Yoko situation. So I say this to say it was a good, you know, character building moment with Yuji. It shows that Yuji is rather complex. He does have this like goody two shoes, I want to save everyone look, but when you think about it and you start seeing characters like Asta, or you start seeing characters like Deku, and you know, characters like Naruto, you start to see where all the inspirations lie behind the character of Yuji, because Yuji is no fact a evil person, but you can see from the start of it, he starts off as someone like Deku, I could never kill, to then someone like maybe someone in the middle ground like Naruto, he only kills if he needs to, right? And then you have someone like Asta, where he is genuinely good, but he's super selfish. He's going to kill whoever's in front of you to get to that Wizard King status. And you can kind of see how all that becomes Yuji, you know? And I love seeing that. Now let's see what's new with Megumin. We actually learned quite a bit about Megumin's past and how it shaped the person he is today. Megumin's ideal is what he thinks the world is unfair to those who don't really deserve it. So he saves who he wants to save as accordance of his own views. But the first person he has ever wanted to save was his older sister, Sumiki. In order to save her, he needs strength. And seeing the crazy growth from Yuji, he wanted to grow stronger as well. Also having a breakthrough and winning, even if you die, and not dying to win. It's a very interesting thing because Megumin you would normally look up as like a side main character. I don't know what they're called. I know it starts with a D. It's like protagonist, durotagonist, antagonist. I don't know. But obviously you would look to him someone like Yuno from also Black Clover, who just rivals the main character. You would look at him as Naruto and Sasuke and how they rival each other. Obviously these all differ because Asta and Yuno were never on bad terms. They literally were just like, we're both gonna be really fucking strong. Naruto, Sasuke, they became friends after like years and years of hardship. But anyway, I say this all to say I absolutely love the fact that Jujutsu Kaisen is one of the few shows that I see where it's like, you need to be selfish. There is no team player. There is no power of friendship. It's, if you die, bro, you can work alongside everyone. But when you die alone. And I love the fact that Megumin, what was holding him back was the fact that he, according to his ideals, he wants to save who he wants to save. And if that means sacrificing himself, so fucking be it. But during this fight, he was truly alone. And as soon as he threw away that treasure I summon bullshit, he pops his domain. From the very beginning of the manga, they fought a finger bearer who was weaker than the one that he beat 1v1. I'm telling, bro, I love it. I just love the craziness coming from it. And finally, funny enough, Nobara was the only one out of the trio to stay completely true to herself throughout the 2 arcs. From the beginning of the show and within her introduction, she made it extremely clear the only reason she became a sorcerer was to simply move to Tokyo. Now obviously it's a lot more complex than that, but the bottom line is she deems what is right and she deems what is wrong solely because of what she has experienced. She's tough mentally, which makes her an extremely scary foe to have. The entire cast that we've come to know is actually all quite complex as well, and helps shape the Jujutsu world and makes us understand why Gojo seems to have such a strong hatred towards the higher ups and Jujutsu society as a whole. Let's start with Kamo, shunned at birth due to his curse technique. He was forced to grow a cold exterior and do things unjustly just for those within the big families to recognize him, while also growing a sort of envy towards Megumin for becoming the promised child. Maki Zenin, born without any cursed energy, was treated like a waste and thrown to the side with her sister Mai. Despite her skill, the Zenin family refused to rank her any higher than a grade 4, making it just terribly hard for her to grow. The higher-ups desperately trying to kill Yuji and even putting a semi-grade 1 curse to do the job, all because they are frightened by Sukuna's presence. The list really goes on and on. But there has to be something more. For Gojo, as powerful as he is, there must have been something within his past that made him see the Jujutsu world for what it really is. But too bad, we're skipping that arc for now, so I'm sorry. I'll revisit this time when the context matters, but just know that you were going to get that answer that we were looking for, but I think it'll be better if I place that at the top of the Shinjuku Showdown before, so that way it's like super prevalent in your head and you're like, oh, that makes sense. But for now, we're jumping all the way to chapter 79, which is the beginning of the Shibuya incident arc and a Goliath of an arc. So let's get into it. October 19th, 2018, Gojo is shown being awoken by his students. He seems to have called them and then dozed off. The reason for their beckoning was because for a while now, Gojo has instructed Orihime to look into a possible mole within the Jujutsu High, and now they have a reason to suspect Mekamaru was the mole all along. And they were correct. Mekamaru was the reason the curses knew where the fingers were in the first place and were able to retrieve the goods in such a little amount of time. He made this binding vow with the curses to let them know this information, but as payment, but wanted to be cured from his fragile body, and Mahito had the power to do just that. But after getting his body back, the double crosser had been double crossed, and the two begin to go at it. Before the fighting is underway, Geto lets us know about an important rule about binding vows. Binding vows can be placed onto oneself and can be mutually set between two parties. Although it's more dangerous to break a vow between two people because the penalty will be unknown, while breaking a vow placed on oneself at most will just remove what was gained. Back to the fight, it's a terrible matchup for Mekamaru. He's been bound for years upon years, so his cursed energy has been saved up. But no matter how much firepower he has, you can't damage Mahito in normal means. So Mekamaru plans to hold out until he can reach Gojo and give him the information about the curse's plans. That being the Shibuya incident plans. For Mekamaru to be a semi-grade 1, he shows impressive feats by getting out of his domain expansion, using a simple domain, seemingly winning the fight and getting back to everyone. But unfortunately, Mekamaru was no match for the special grade curse and fell in battle. What makes this more heartbreaking is that Mekamaru wanted nothing but to be able to be with everyone. He always felt alone watching through a screen, but if he could just win this fight, he'd be able to get back to everyone. But the tragic thing is, he was the only one creating that rift. During his final moments, he couldn't hear, but Miwa was sat next to his puppet and asked if one day they could meet face to face. But at that point, he was long dead. With that, October 31st rolls around and the curses set their plans in motion. At the center of Shibuya, a 400-meter veil had been casted, trapping civilians inside but allowing Jujutsu sorcerers to go in and out as they please. Different teams are set up to go find the root of the problem. Team Nominee, Zenin team, Kusakabe's team, and the Meimei team. Gojo himself goes to the source of the veil and is underground within a train station. Gojo begins to understand their plan. Using this veil, it's forcing a lot of people to be in one place all at once, meaning no domain expansion or else many will get caught in the crossfire, and of course the disaster curses lie in wait to ambush him. The fight begins and they start trying to pressure Gojo within the tight space, but Gojo's OPS just stares and implodes one of the disaster curses, looking to the next one and saying, next. We take a break from the fight to move over to the Yuji's perspective. He and Team Meimei gets reports of transfigured humans running around down in the train station, and Yuji knows it's only a matter of time before he meets that guy again. Mei Mei gives Yuji the choice to fight weak transfigured humans or take out the strong cursed spirit guarding the veil. Yuji obviously chooses to fight the grade 1 spirit and beats the daylights out of him, effectively no diffing it. Also, a really cool foreshadow is that this grasshopper bug thing had 4 arms and Yuji still kept tempo even though it was a 4-arm versus 2-arm. Cool foreshadows, I love to see it. Yuji and Mei Mei miss Mahito, but that's because he was working on defeating Gojo as well. He brings a train full of transfigured humans to cause even more of a riot. Their goal was to break Gojo's calm demeanor. Gojo can be pretty cold-hearted in times, and he's extremely used to death at this point, but adding more and more lives to the fray, they're hoping to do just that. But Gojo is the strongest for a reason, and cast a domain expansion for 0.2 seconds, killing about 1,000 transfigured humans in about 299 seconds. But just like that, Geto makes his move and summons the prison realm. Here's something I found very interesting after reading this chapter. The condition of using the prison realm was that after saying the words prison realm open, they would need to keep Gojo still in one place for 1 minute, which is just impossible. But due to the 6 eyes, time as he perceives it goes by extremely quickly. So for everyone else present, only about 10 seconds or so had passed by, but for Gojo, 1 minute had passed ages ago, making it that the prison realm wouldn't have worked on anyone else, but due to Gojo's OP ass was his biggest downfall. Anyways, a ancient sorcerer by the name of Kenjaku took over the body of Geto Suguru, a very close friend of Gojo's and someone he had killed personally. So that shock was enough to keep Gojo still just long enough for Gojo to be sealed. Also, Kenjaku shits on Yuta, like the irony, bro. Obviously, I know you guys don't know Yuta Akotsu, but we will come to know him very soon. But let's continue the Shibuya incident. Before being sealed, Gojo speaks to Geto directly, which causes his soul to fight back momentarily, showing that his soul is indeed still in there, somewhere. This right here will be an example of one of the pros and cons of this manga. But for now, back to the story at hand. After sealing Gojo, the second part of the plan is undergo. Befriend Sukuna, or just make him an ally. But now with Gojo gone, they're starting to think that having Sukuna is a bit overkill anyway. So selfishly, Mahito and Choso want to kill Yuji for different reasons. So they play a game. Whoever finds him first can do whatever they want with him. Yuji meanwhile lets everyone know what has happened to Gojo, and destroying the Veil mission is put on hold and turns into Save Gojo mission, because without Gojo, everyone will perish. Yuji, Ino, and Megumi look for a way to enter into a curtain, but now that Gojo has been sealed, those fearing his existence has now begun to emerge from the shadows, the cursed users. They're behind the curtain currently over Gojo's sealed location. Anyway, so Yuji and Megumi start beating the shit out of an elderly man, and Ino absolutely gets smacked around by a long dead ghost. To explain a bit, the grandmother's curse technique is sort of similar to the reincarnation jutsu in Naruto, and how some people in Naruto were able to retain their free will even after being reincarnated, but it's not supposed to work that way. Originally, the grandchild was supposed to just get the powers of Toji Zenin for a small while. But anyway, yeah, Toji Zenin's back, so I know you don't know much about Toji anyway because I skipped that arc. Yuji and Megumi end up splitting up. With the curtain down, they can now try and rescue Gojo, but Megumi decides to hang back and take care of Ino. Everyone has started to head towards Gojo's location one by one, but that also includes cursed users as well. Nobara encounters one such person who is the most annoying piece of fuck that has ever touched the screen. He's the most useless curse technique user, which allows him basically to have miracles. He can't die. You can take a nuke, and if he has a miracle stored up, he just won't die. But what good will that do when you're a weakling, coward piece of shit? Anyways, Nanami finds this man and makes sure to put an end to his streak, simultaneously making TikTok straight horny for months to come.
Kissing and
Meanwhile, Yuji finally makes it to the station, and before even hitting the ground, he runs into Choso, the eldest brother of the two Nobara and Yuji had killed, and it's fucking on sight. Before continuing the fight, he asks if they had left Yuji any last words, and Yuji says the worst thing possible. Not really, but they did cry. This infuriates Choso as he goes to kill Yuji. The fight is long and brutal, each punch filled with determination and hatred, but not long after, Yuji is indeed defeated and left to die and bleed to death. Remember back in the Goodwill event when Toto started reliving memories that had never even happened? Then straight became one of the most impressionate people for Yuji and his growth? Well, it happened again. While Yuji was on death's door, Choso would get a wave of memories of his family, including Yuji. This shocks Choso to the core, and he walks off flabbergasted and sick to his stomach. This is why people thought that Yuji had some memory swapping ability. If this happened once, sure, that's just by chance. When this shit happened twice, people were like, this is starting to be a little lucky. This is a coincidence. Now, if this happens a third time, and God, it's gonna happen a third time, that is a pattern. But does this pattern lead anywhere? We don't know. Two young girls find Yuji and begin feeding him fingers. These girls love Geto and don't like the fact that their master is being basically a puppet for some ancient sorcerer, so they're gonna ask Sukuna for help. Very smart ideas. Other things I skipped over is the Mei fight. You know, she was fighting against Kenjaku, and they're doing the smart thing afterwards and just retreating because she was gonna get washed. Maki, Nanami, and the Zenin head family member dude, they all fight this water disaster curse, and they all get roped up in his domain expansion. Don't worry though, Megumi joins into the fray, but even still they are not able to defeat this guy, and they try to escape, but those who inherited the curse of the Zenin family, the one who couldn't fully leave behind that curse, they would all bear witness to the bare flesh of the one who is free. Toji is in the motherfucking building! To those who have watched the series knows what I skipped and why I'm so fucking hyped right now. But if you're watching blind, here's a quick recap. This man is similar to Mekamaru. He has heavenly restriction. More so, he's more on another level of Maki Zenin. Though instead of having a fragile body and lots of cursed energy, he has no cursed energy, an incredibly powerful body. He's also Megumin's dad and is also the man who killed Gojo in his teen years and turned him into the beast he is today. After all, a sorcerer's growth never comes easy. Anyways, this man yeets Maki for his playful cloud and completely washes Dagon, showing his immense strength, then dragging Megumin out for a little father and son bonding. While their little playdate was in session, Jogo third parties the crew, killing Nanami, Maki, and Naibito, all in mere seconds. Jogo gets distracted by the presence of Sukuna's fingers, and he feeds Yuji 10 more fingers, making Yuji about at 15 fingers of Sukuna consumed at this point, and awakening Sukuna. The girls are asking for help gets turned into mincemeat, and Jogo is forced into a 1v1 with Sukuna. We switch back to Toji and Megumin's fight. Megumin can also feel the presence of Sukuna and runs for his life from his absent father, until Toji's indomitable soul takes control and ends himself after hearing Megumin was not a Zenin. Man really did not want to pay for child support. As Megumin tries to find some help and get healed, he's once again third-partied. Man, this is worse than the Apex Legends lobby. But while he was getting killed, all of Shibuya shakes. Jogo and Sukuna have their fight. Though Jogo is noticeably getting beat bad, his power is still nothing to scoff at. Even still, his power is nothing compared to Sukuna's firepower. However, this would be the first time Sukuna will show what fans would dub it at the time, black box. As you know, sorcerers usually can only have one type of curse technique, and Sukuna has cleave and dismantle. But to finish off Jogo, he uses a fire-based attack, killing him instantly. Though to pay homage, Sukuna tells him in the lands between that compared to those he fought 1,000 years ago, he wasn't half bad. He tells him to stand proud. You are strong. Megumi reverts back to his old ways and summons Mahoraga, the strongest of the 10 shadows, effectively killing himself in order to win. But just in the nick of time, Sukuna comes to save the day, healing Megumi and going to deal with the tyrant Shikigami. What makes Mahoraga so damn powerful is its innate curse technique. With 3 ticks of the wheel on his head, it can adapt to any and every attack. That being said, against someone as powerful as Sukuna, dealing with him was no problem at all. Simply just overwhelm the adaptive ability, then introduce a completely new one, destroying it in one go. After enough time, Yuji takes control over Sukuna once again, but this time Sukuna successfully breaks Yuji's resolve. As Yuji stares to the barren wasteland, what used to be Shibuya, all the memories come flooding back into Yuji's mind. All the blood, all the screams, all the deaths. Thousands of people were killed by his own hands. This completely breaks Yuji. His entire reasoning for fighting was to grant people good deaths and eat the fingers, destroy the ultimate evil, and die surrounded by others, just like his grandfather said. But now he's broken that code. He's killed people. He granted innocent lives a gory and agonizing death. Yes, it wasn't him, but Sukuna never would have been there if not for Yuji. If Yuji never ate that damn finger, those people would still be alive. Yuji collects himself rather quickly and comes to the conclusion that if he doesn't kill more curses and balance the scale, he'd just be a plain old murderer. And hey look, Nanami's never mind. Mahito takes the chance to kill Nanami right in front of Yuji's eyes, pouring salt into the wound. But before Nanami parted this world, he tried his best to not curse Yuji in his final moments. But unfortunately, as I said earlier, love is the most twisted type of curse. Yuji and Mahito begin their fight. And this would spawn the "you or me" conversation. Mahito states that humans and curses aren't that much different. Humans birth curses, curses kill humans, humans try and fight back, then the cycle of pain continues. With more deaths comes more negative emotions, and then comes an infinite amount of curses. Humans kill curses because it's in their nature, and so do curses. Yuji and Mahito are not much different. And until Yuji understands this fact, he'll never be able to defeat the mirror of himself. The first round ends in a tie, and the second round commences. While in the fight, Mahito is noticeably running away more often, but that's because during their little game to find Yuji, he had split himself into 2, making him much weaker than usual. The second half of Mahito is currently fighting Nobara and is getting completely washed, causing soul damage to both halves, and Yuji does not falter, beating the absolute dog shit out of him. Too bad Mahito is a bitch and he started to run. His double couldn't use his curse technique, but doing a little switch around, he's able to get his hands on Nobara just for a second. Her life flashes before her eyes as she's brought back to her childhood. As a child, she was always thought that everyone in her village was crazy, but soon she found a friend named Fumi. Nobara and Fumi would come to meet an older woman named Sayori. She was the most welcoming person. She was bright and always wore a smile, but then soon enough, things began to change, and she was practically kicked out of the village. Nobara was not much of a crier, but she cried that day. Time went on, and Nobara and Fumi grew up, but she never forgot. She made a promise to Fumi that all 3 of them would meet in Tokyo. She left that village thinking the loudest people tend to be the most insane, but after coming to Jujutsu High, she realized maybe she was wrong. Similarly, not wanting to curse Yuji in her final moments, she says to him, "Itadori, tell everyone it wasn't so bad." Then her fucking eye comes out. Jesus Christ. When the chapter came out, people were in straight disbelief. I mean, it's unheard of to have a shonen trio lose a member, especially so early on into the actual story. The biggest running theory during this time was the fact that if you look at her fist, it seems to be drawn very interestingly. It almost looked as if she hit herself with the curse technique to stop the soul corruption. No matter what fans thought, Yuji just seen his close friend killed in front of him for the second time, again powerless to do anything to stop their death, and this completely breaks him. Mahito, finally seeing the resolve broken, goes for the kill. He brings an incredibly good point. He asks, "Tell me, Yuji Itadori, have you ever stopped to count how many curses you killed?" Before he could kill Yuji, Todo arrives onto the scene along with his very own healer. I didn't catch this before, but the way they speak about Nobara is so vague, saying things like, "I finished treating the girl, but she's probably dead." Like, okay bro, just say she's dead if she's dead, dude. Anyway, Todo comes to his brother's aid. He gives him a speech of conviction. This entire time, Yuji has been shouldering the burdens all alone, knowing all these cursed spirits are coming out because of him. Death and blood is all on his hands, but even still, those who have fallen in battle are not truly defeated until you stop moving. He then asks Yuji, what has he been entrusted with? And before you can find that answer, to never stop moving forward. And with that, Yuji gets back up and in the midst of the action, Mekamaru says his goodbye and Miwa cries, and all the Kyoto students say even though they are weak, they still want to try and help this entire massacre. It's all very sad. But anyway, action time! Todo, Mahito, and Yuji have all hit Black Flash and are now all fighting with 120% of their power. Mahito becomes too pressured and decides to take a note out of Gojo's book, doing the 0.2 second domain expansion. This was more than enough time to actually touch Todo's hands and get him infected and forcing him to cut off his own arm, effectively destroying his technique. Another interesting thing is this kind of shows us that you are indeed able to cut off a part in which was touched by the technique and you can survive its effects, i.e. the Nobara hammering her eye out is now much more plausible. However, going back to the fight, Todo uses Mahito's hands to switch one more time, getting a Black Flash right in the face, forcing him to unlock a new form and officially becoming something new, beginning their third round between Yuji and Mahito. Yuji, after a long and strenuous battle, decides the only way to take him down in this form is to hit him with a maximum Black Flash, and with the help of Todo, Yuji does just that. As Mahito sits in defeat, Yuji finally comes to terms with what was said earlier, and he replies, "You're right, Mahito. I am you. I wanted to reject you, convince myself that you were wrong, but that doesn't matter now. I'm going to kill you. Even if you come back as another curse, I'll kill you. Change your name, change your form, I'll kill you again. I don't need a reason or a meaning anymore. In the grand scheme of things, I'm probably nothing more than a cog, but I'll keep killing curses for as long as I can. That's my role in all of this." And with that, Mahito has finally broke and tries to run. Right before Yuji could get him, Kenjaku shows up and steals his kill. The Kyoto students show up as well, but they are no help at all. But they certainly do their best to try. However, a big reveal is incoming. Choso shows up to the battlefield and finally understands who the hell is in Geto's body. The same brain of the Jujutsu sorcerer who took control of Noritashi Kamo, the most vile sorcerer in history. Choso tries to get his get back for being manipulated, but unfortunately gets washed. And as everyone's about to die from Urumi's attack, Yuki comes to save the day. She was in the arc that I had skipped earlier, but a very quick recap, she's a special grade sorcerer and was the one who gave Getsu the idea to kill non-sorcerers and get himself killed by Gojo. She's in the big leads, okay? Though, she was just a tad bit too late and Kenny did his thing, activating the next stage to achieving the future of chaos. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the conclusion of the Shibuya incident arc. I was not lying when I said that it was a Goliath of a chapter or a Goliath of an arc. I think it's actually one of the longest arcs in the manga. So I knew it was going to take up more than half of what I originally thought it would be, or what I had originally thought it would have been. But as I was reading it, you know how when you read it, you can see comments and whatnot. And every time I would dip down in the comments, the more it kept getting into it, the more it kept getting into like the deeper of the fights and Kenjaku's plans. I started to notice that a lot of people seemed to get lost at this point. People were just like, bro, I'm so confused. People had gifs where they were like writing notes down. They were like, I totally get it. And it kind of made me feel like people didn't quite understand some of the beats and the Shibuya incident. And I guess I could kind of see that when you start looking back at it. But there were quite a lot of moving parts, let's just say. Okay, so first and foremost, I think it'll be best to just talk about Yuji Itadori as a character and how his character arc really thrived in this arc. So at the very beginning, right, this was coming straight off the heels of, I think, the blood painting arc, where Yuji was forced to actually kill something and have tears shed in that moment, right? And so I believe going into the Shibuya incident, he had the full intentions of helping people, but it was still that lingering doubt in his mind where he was like, I killed people. Like at the very beginning of the manga, he was not about that life, and then things slowly just kept coming into play, and he saw the brutality of this world that he's living in, and he's like, sometimes I have to do that. And he's thoroughly broken because of it, due to his actions of killing his two younger brothers, as I will come to explain that. After killing those two, Choso is the main reason as to why Sukuna was even able to come back in the first place, is because Choso ripped into his shoulder and left him to bleed and die, walked away, and distraught and sad and everything, right? And that's how Sukuna came out. Sukuna then fought Maharaga, fought what's his name, Jogo, and destroyed all of Shibuya just to show Yuji like, hey, I just killed thousands of people by your hands, lol, jk, bye bye. And that sincerely broke him. And so when Yuji and his mindset, it's so many things compiling at this point. It's Yuji wants to grant people good deaths, but it's this lingering doubt that's been in his brain. He's responsible of a lot of people's deaths. Even before Shibuya incident, Sukuna was just in his ear like, hey, you know, after you ate my finger, my power started resonating. There's more curses now because of you. All these people are dying because of you. And so he's been trying to, like, I guess, balance the scales. He's been trying to do more good since he's getting more people killed. And at this point, it just sincerely broke him. He saw all the people, he witnessed their deaths, and he starts blaming himself because he was the only one supposed to die. His grandfather's curse is being broken. He was supposed to die surrounded by others, not the other way around. People aren't supposed to die around him. And so it really breaks him until he gets up and it's like, hey, the only way to fix this is to just kill more curses. And that's where he kind of last left off. And then obviously Noburo was killed, Nanami was killed, and that was enough to break his resolve to the point where he wanted to give up. But then he got up and said, well, he didn't say it, but Toto came and helped his ass up, explaining to him that a lot more people are gonna die, buddy, but it's when you stop moving is when their deaths become meaningless. And with that, Yuji just taps into a new mindset where he no longer is thriving for or is striving for death. He is striving to live as long as possible, to kill as many curses as possible. He doesn't need a rhyme or a reason. He just truly hates those things. That's what Mahito was really talking about, was like, your perspective is that curses are evil, Our perspective is that you motherfuckers created us, so of course we're gonna do what we enjoy and what we were created to do, which is kill humans. And he's like, until you see that, until you see we're the two sides of the same coin, you're never gonna beat me. So it was very ironic and really cool that he had tapped into that, and with that speech, it was really good. A lot of people seem to think that that speech came out of nowhere, but rereading it, it's actually super cool that the first thing that Yuji had asked when he killed Hanami was, "What the hell are you, Mahito?" And that's when Mahito answered back. He said, "I'm you." And then, or he's like, "You're me, bro." And then that's when he finally rebutted. It was like, "I am you, bro. I agree. I concur." And he didn't kill him, but he definitely showed him what was up, and he developed that cog mentality. It's such a cool like road that Yuji was on, and not a lot of characters, or at least not a lot of manga that I've read, really battles that ideal of like being this goody two shoes at the beginning, like wanting to just genuinely save people, but unable to do so. It's super cool, and there's a lot of little things as well that I want to get into that I had noticed after rereading it. But let's just talk about Choso, since he's on my head right now. I was so confused in the beginning because obviously when I was reading this, theories were going around, oh, Yuji's in Ain't No Name, back at it again. And then Gege comes out and he's like, yo bro, Toji and Choso, that situation has nothing to do with each other. And you're just sitting here like, oh, but he's a troll, so we can't really take his words for granted. So that kind of like altered my mind in a sense. But in my head I was thinking like, oh, you know, this is a headcanon, that it's like some memory shit. But rereading it, no, actually what had happened is that we actually do see this. But when Yuji kills Izu and the other brother, Choso knows immediately that they're dead. And you know, it's really cool that it's set up that way, because he's like, yeah, my brothers are dead, I can't feel them anymore. And so when he was fighting against Yuji and he did that fucking shoulder swipe and that shit was gone, he had a similar feeling of a defleeting family member just leaving. And I thought that was so cool, because he's like, what the fuck just happened? Did I just kill my brother? And he walks off. And I thought that was so cool. I had no idea that's the reason why he came to that conclusion, but I love that. What's another thing? I love Megumin. Okay, I love how flawed Megumin is. From the very beginning, Megumin was like this promised child. He was like weak, but had a lot of potential. And then his mentality was really blocking him, but he was very smart and calculating and stuff like that. And his physical prowess is nothing to scoff at. Like, he was fighting against Kamo, and I was like, yo, why is he kind of squaring up right now? He was keeping up with Maki. I was like, yo, what is he doing? But and then he got that breakthrough with the blood paintings when he fought that special grade curse by himself, where he did his own domain. But I love that he kind of backtracks, where there was just a moment of hesitation where he's like, I'm 100% going to die right now. And he was like, I bet this is how they used it against the Six Eyes user in the past. And that was just bad, because like Gojo said, there is a difference between dying to live and living to die. And that's also another cool parallel that I've seen. During this arc, there is such a big difference between mentality. It was at a point where Yuji was fighting Choso and he was dying, right? He was dying. And he had his lung punctured. He had 2 stab wounds in his hands, or in his feet. And he was going to die. He was like, at this point, I'm going to die. But he's like, I don't know. He had this moment where he had said something like similar to, even if it kills me, I'm going to stop this guy so that my friends can save Gojo. It was so cool, just like having that, like, not spelled out in front of you, like Yuji has a craziest mentality. But no, he was literally like, I'm going to kill this guy even if it kills me. And versus, you know, Megumin, where he was like, I'm going to kill myself in order to kill this guy. And it is such a cool thing. But obviously, That's when we see Maharaga. That's when we see his ability to adapt, and Sukuna has a lot of fun killing him and blowing up all of Shibuya as well. It's very cool. It's very awesome. Anyway, but Megumin was just really cool in that regard. And then what else? Nobara. We're talking about Nobara. Nobara, I feel like is such a... It's hard to explain with Nobara because I feel like I've said everything about her already that I can already say. Is she's just really strong mentally. She was very true to herself from the very beginning to the very end, and yeah, she's a solid character, like low key. And going to the theory, I don't know how plausible that theory is, but like I said, it does have some possibilities because we see it with Toto. He gets touched, and right before he like could have that infection spread, he cuts his hand off. Now it's not explained if he did that, like if Mahito did that on purpose, like he aimed at his hand, or if he could have touched anywhere else, or if that was the only thing he could get inside of the simple domain. It's really hard to see there, but it is the fact that he got his hand touched and he cut it off and it went away. It was like a zombie bite. Like if you ever seen any type of zombie show and they get bit or they get scratched on their hand and they just fucking cut that shit off. Probably. But I digress. I think there's some plausibility. I don't know. I have no idea. Also, I know this is only pretty much covering seasons 1 through 2. Not anywhere else, because I was going to make a part 2 of this chapter, so I can't say certain things that are happening like right now, but it is something cool to think about with Nobara, where she could have exercised the transfiguration thing in her head, because we do know that it is a soul shaping thing, so it could be that she used it to stop it. We have no clue. Anyway, her death is very big, and I thought that was really cool. And now on to the final thing that I wanted to talk about, which was what the hell is happening with Kenny and all that other stuff. He was pretty much puppeteering the whole thing, right? He was puppeteering Yuji's birth. He was puppeteering the whole disaster curses. He was doing it all, okay? Because the reason why I mentioned Yuji's birth is because if Choso and his brothers were conceived from a half curse, half human woman, all the way back when Noritoshi Kamo was still around and doing his crazy shit, that means if they're related to Yuji is some form of them, right? He is some kind of freak of nature, just like the two of them. Because I mean, from the very beginning, Yuji had always had this physical prowess, or breaking records, jumping up 2 stories, punching curses so hard that they are exploding, and just pretty much putting his hand through concrete. And it's just like, this is normal. And then obviously it's like little small things, like where they'll call Yuji on the phone and Yuji just like fucking runs over there, and they're like, oh wow, you got there quick. Yeah, he didn't take a car or a bus, he just ran over here because they were like, you're in a hurry. So it's just it's little things that they show through that. So Kenjaku puppeteering this whole thing in terms of like, I guess he made Yuji out to be like the perfect opposite of Mahito, maybe, because Mahito and Yuji fought, and then at that point his soul understanding became even higher, so that way when Kenjaku absorbed him, he was going to be able to use idol transfiguration even better. Why did he want idol transfiguration? So like I said, Kenjaku wants to bring back ancient sorcerers, and he kind of wanted to do the same thing that happened to Yuji, but do it with other people. But as we know, the thing that happened with Yuji is literally like 1 in a millionth chance. Well, with idol transfiguration, Kenjaku won't have to keep doing these failed experiments, aka the blood paintings, and he could just literally use idol transfiguration to forcefully change and reconstruct the soul, so that way when a ancient sorcerer's soul is implanted within them, the vessel will become, well, the vessel will be good for them to use. What is happening? Oh, someone's downstairs. And yeah, the vessel would be good for them to use. Or the ancient sorcerers will use them as a vessel, a perfect vessel. But anyway, that was the first maybe 8 to 9 arcs of the show. I do plan on going over all of, you know, everything, like everything Jujutsu Kaisen. As you know, Jujutsu Kaisen is ending this month in November, or I think it's September 30th, September 31st, if I'm being correct. I don't know. I'm kind of guessing on that one, but I remember seeing that number. But since it's ending, I wanted to go back and revisit all the times that I love Jujutsu Kaisen. So I will be doing a part 2 of this situation is what I'm talking about. For a lot of people, they seem to think that, you know, chapter 1 all the way up to the Shibuya incident was the height of Jujutsu Kaisen. So I thought, why not put it in a video and then cut it right down the middle and then go into what the more controversial topics are at hand. Because people tend to not like the cooling games, people tend to not like the preparation arc, people tend to not like the Shinjuku showdown. And so I kind of wanted to get into it to see my own, you know, perspective on it. What type of story beats remain to be perfect? What kind of story developments can we see from this? How much was left vague and unexplained, or if any, and how many characters' deaths were quote unquote meaningless? So I want to get into it, and I was gonna put it in one video, but I simply ran out of time. This was a lot more time consuming than I thought. So if you're interested in that, obviously like the video, subscribe for more if you're liking this type of content. And yeah, but like it or not, I'm still gonna make a video because I love Jujutsu Kaisen, but I digress. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If I got anything wrong, some discussions down below, I guess, just to get the fire started. For those who have stuck around for this entire video, thank you. But I have a question for you guys to put in the comments below, okay? Who do you think is at fault most for the situation that Jujutsu Kaisen has become? What I mean by that is, who is to blame? A lot of people like to say that Toji Zenin was the one that started it off. But let's say that Yuki never talked to Geto and told him about pretty much genociding non-sorcerers. That would have never correlated to having Gojo fight against him and kill him and show compassion and not destroy his body, which then allowed Kenjaku to get inside his body and use him as a puppet to have that soul manipulation or curse manipulation technique, which then allowed him to use idol transfiguration. That's what I mean. Who's the most to blame? Was it Yuji? Was it Yuta? Was it anyone else? So that's my question. I think I'm gonna say my example. I think Yuki's literally to blame here. Like, if she just kept her mouth shut, I don't think this would have happened. But anyway, I digress. I will see you guys on the next one. Thank you for watching and very much appreciate it. I know I don't really talk about my subscriber count, but thank you for 20k subs. It's kind of crazy. It really happened like overnight. I just one day woke up and saw my subscriber count going up and up, and I never paid homage to it, but today I will, because I'm extremely gracious for you guys, appreciative for you guys. So I'll see you on the next one. Deuces, bye, and sorry for this yap session, but peace.